Welcome into this special Saturday edition of On Texas Football. My name is Gerry Hamilton, joined by CJ Vogel. CJ, big contract news that we got to go over. Steve Sarkisian, we knew he had been, that had been announced that his contract had been extended and a new deal was being put in place by the University of Texas and Jimmy Sexton and Steve Sarkisian. Now we have the contract details of that here on that broke late Friday night. It's a 7-year contract through December 31st of 2030. That's the extension for the contract, starting at $10.3 million a year, going up $100,000 every year through 2030. That includes $300,000 one-time bonus to be paid prior to April 1 of 2024. So your initial takeaways before we get into some of those details, those various details of the contract.
Well, it's certainly nice knowing that Texas has their guy, right? You know, it was kind of uncertain, I guess, earlier last month whether or not Sarkisian was going to go pursue that Alabama job when they had that opening. We obviously know he wanted to stick at Texas. Obviously, the 4-year extension through 2030 allows kind of a sigh of relief for Texas fans to know that their guy will be sticking around for a long time. And I think it's great. Obviously, he just went to the college football playoff. You're looking at a guy that understands college football in the way that it's currently run when it comes to NIL, the transfer portal, I guess just building an entire roster right now and program that can compete at the highest level. It's nice knowing that he wants to stick around and Texas is treating him nicely, obviously, with this extension. I think that's something that's certainly worth mentioning. The $10.3 million per year basis before the $100 or $100,000 increase each year. It just is nice knowing that there's a base of Texas moving forward that begins with Steve Sarkisian.
And CJ, what it also proves is if you go to a blue blood school and you win at a high level, you are handsomely rewarded. So think about this now. Sarkisian becomes the 7th head coach. 7th, we may be 8th with Brian Kelly, but 6th, maybe, or 7th head coach making $10 million or more a year in college football. That's Dabo Swinney made 10.9 in 2023. Kirby Smart made, and that doesn't include Nick Saban, obviously retired. Kirby Smart made 10.7 in 2023. Then you had Ryan Day at 10.3 in 2023. Started on third base, hadn't got home yet. Those incentives aren't coming home. Lincoln Riley made $10 million in 2023. Brian Kelly was 9.9 million in 2023. Kalen DeBoer's new contract with Alabama starts at $10 million a year. So those are your guys that make $10 million a year. Then there's the group at $9 million. And some of this has changed with new incentives, new contracts. But so Lane Kiffin joined the $9 million a year guys. That includes almost Texas A&M on the tarmac head coach Mark Stoops, Josh Heupel, and James Franklin at Penn State, talking about not getting your incentives. So those are your guys that are in that $10 million range and then $9 million below it. So then now let's talk about some of those incentives. So he gets 2 dealer cars a year because you need it on $10 million a year. I mean, obviously, right. You need that. 20 hours of private flight time, obviously on University of Texas planes. And all coaches get that. That's all standard. All deals have that. 2 dealer cars, however many hours of private flight time you get. But 20 is normal for a Jimmy Sexton contract. But then, performance incentives, CJ, up to $1.8 million and $1.85 million a year. I'll let you give kind of a run through, and we'll go through some of those.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the kind of levels of difference in terms of the 10 million club to the 9 million club. Yeah. Sarkisian, obviously, with that college football playoff appearance, gives him that little budge, I guess, nudge over the ledge there into the 10 million club.
All these coaches have been in a college football playoff. I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. It's an elite club, and Sarkisian is in it and has the room to grow more, obviously, with the $1.85 million in incentives. There's a $150,000 incentive to making the conference championship game in the SEC. There's an opportunity to add another $150,000 should he win the SEC conference game, a championship game in Atlanta each year. So $300K up for grabs if Texas wins the SEC for Sarkisian.
By the way, here's the one nobody cares about. Before you get on to the college football playoff, $100,000 for making a meaningless December bowl in Florida in December. So we'll bypass that one because Texas fans don't give a about that one. All right, so moving on.
Yeah. I'm sure he's the only one that'd be happy to make the Alamo Bowl once again. But to your point, to the college football playoff, $250,000 should Texas make the 12-team playoff. Feels like it should be attainable each and every year for Sarkisian. Obviously, now incentivized to do so. $500,000 to making the quarterfinal. That'll be one win in the college football playoff. Should he win a second game and make the semifinal, $750,000 added to his pocket. If Texas goes ahead and wins, all the way through to the national championship game, $1 million added to his pocket. And then if Texas wins the national championship, that is an extra 1.25 going to Steve Sarkisian's contract right there. A lot of opportunity in the 12-team playoff for Sarkisian to keep making some extra money to his already lucrative deal that he signed this morning. But man, it's looking like Texas is making the extra rounds to make things incentivized for Sarkisian. Obviously, you talked about his obsession to winning when it comes to college football. He's talked about it over and over again since the end of the season, and now there's a financial incentivized actions there. So it'll be exciting to see just how extra motivated Sarkisian is when it comes to winning, and money obviously helps the case there.
And then there's also some various incentives for National Coach of the Year, SEC Coach of the Year. Those don't exceed $300,000. So that's really what it comes down to. If he maxes out his incentives at 1.85 in a season, that means he will have won the SEC championship, won the national championship, one SEC Coach of the Year, and one National Coach of the Year. So if he ever hits all those incentives, there's going to be a hell of a parade in Austin. Let's say that. Hey, I'll tell you the other thing with this contract, man. I can't wait to see the threads that him and L'Oreal wear next year. I mean,
no kidding.
Hey, look, you got to step your game up once again on game day. So those game day outfits are going to be, I'm sure they're going to be fire in the.
Hey, that walk through Bevo Boulevard's turned into a fashion runway
yes.
for most of those guys. So I'm excited to see the threads, like you said. That'll be good.
Yeah, so we've kind of gone over Steve Sarkisian. Again, extended through 2030 from 2026 through December 31st, 2030. That contract starts at $10.3 million a year, goes up $100,000 every season. Then there's $1.85 million a year in incentives he could possibly earn. Again, joining the likes of Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Lincoln Riley, Kalen DeBoer, and Brian Kelly as coaches that make $10 million or more a season. Brian Kelly might be 9.9, but look, all guys that have been to the college football playoff. And then those guys right below that and in that $9 million range, Lane Kiffin, Mark Stoops, almost Texas A&M head coach Mark Stoops, Josh Heupel, James Franklin. There's also news, CJ, with some extensions on the staff at the assistant coach position and Torrey Becton as strength and conditioning coach. And I'll run through those real quick and we'll kind of give our thoughts. Kyle Flood, offensive line coach, co-C, really right-hand man on the field of Steve Sarkisian, 1.325 per year extended through 2026. Jeff Banks, 1.15 extended through 2026. Pete Kwiatkowski, defensive coordinator, 1.8 a year extended through 2026. Then you have Tashard Choice, $525K in 24, extended through 25 at $550K. The AJ Millwheat, 425 year extended through 2025. Not all, and Johnny Nansen, Kenny Baker, not Chris Jackson. Chris Jackson obviously is extended through 24. We don't know any details there. Kenny Baker, Nansen, details have not come out. But not all assistants were extended through 25 or 26. Terry Joseph, Blake Gidding extended through the 24 season. Torrey Becton, strength and conditioning coach, extended at $550K through the 24 season. So there is some difference there. Not all guys extended through 26, few 25, couple 24.
I think the biggest thing to me is the continuity. And, that's been something Sarkisian's talked about in press conferences after the season. Every coach on this Texas staff has been given the opportunity to go coach elsewhere, whether it be a promotion, a head coaching job, as we saw with Coach Choate taking the Nevada job. It's, when you win at Texas, people want to have a little bit of a grab to that. It's attractive now. You're winning on the biggest stages. You have proven that you can get Texas over the hump. And for years, that was kind of the biggest question mark. Now Texas and the assistant coaching staff is really looking very attractive to a number of other position coaches across the country. And for Sarkisian, and to Texas's credit, keeping this core group of guys, when you talk about PK, Flood, Banks on roster and on staff, it's huge because Texas, again, they just got to where they wanted to be. They're a top 4 team in the country. They were on really the cusp of going to the national championship, and who knows what would have happened if they made it. But you got so close, and to be able to keep these guys and lock them up for future seasons down the road, it's huge. It's huge for Sarkisian and his program, because not only does it help on the field, but in recruiting as well. As we've talked about, it's only so important for another top 5, top 6 class to come onto the 40 acres. Keeping this core group of guys is huge, and I love what they were able to do with Coach Beckton as well. Let's not forget about him, because what he's doing right now in the winter conditioning program is massive. The returns have been tremendous, and the way that he can feed into spring football when they get the assistant coaches and Sarkisian get their hands back on these players, it's big time.
And let's put a bow around this again, because there's a lot going on the 40 acres on the football side of things. A lot, period. Congrats, baseball, football, about baseball, softball. But on the football side, it's been a big week. Obviously, the Steve Sarkisian contract details announced now. We kind of know the extensions for those assistant coaches. And Sarkisian spoke to this. The same OC, same DC. Yep. Since they have not changed since he's been at Texas. He spoke to that continuity. Then earlier this week, the town hall with CDC, and kind of you saw the renditions of the indoor practice facility and what's going on there. All this stuff, CJ, all kind of coming together. Sark gets it done in year 3. Year 1 was very rocky. There are some boats that were sinking, but they filled the holes there, right? Held that thing together. They went from
Flex Seal on it.
Yes. 5 wins to 8 wins was the key from year 1 to year 2. That kind of takes away the questions about where your program's headed in recruiting. Then year 2 to year 3, not only do you play in the Big 12 championship, beat Alabama, by the way. Happy retirement to Nick Saban and Jupiter. But you beat Alabama, national stage, go to the Big 12 championship game, win it in convincing fashion, make the college football playoff, all on the way out the door in the Big 12. Brett Yormark will not be missed. Then you get in, now you're moving to the SEC. You're about to have the most guys in the combine in history for Texas, the most guys drafted in the 7-round draft in history for Texas. Recruiting, like you said, is going well. So putting a big bow on this, CJ, we're 31 days from spring practice today. Most anticipated spring practice in 2 decades at Texas. So putting a bow on all this, look, there's a lot of things going on the 40 acres, and it's been a while since we could do a video or even talk on ontexasfootball.com. Come join us about all things being positive on the football front.
No, it's been a long time. And that's why it's so exciting that this extension was announced today, because for a while you didn't necessarily know if your coach going into the year was going to stick around at Texas. For the last 10, 15 years, it's been, well, if he doesn't show improvement now, like we could be having this same conversation next year where we're checking Flight Tracker. Yep. And so right now, knowing that Sarkisian's locked up through 2030, obviously treated very well through this contract, Sarkisian's going to be around to build off of the momentum from the 23 season and into the SEC, where let's not forget Kirby Smart, Brian Kelly, Kalen DeBoer, all making $10 million plus right now. The SEC plays big boy ball, and Texas is showing right now that they're not afraid to step up to the plate whenever the moment's at its biggest. And so Sarkisian making that threshold of $10 million man, it just goes to show Texas is ready to play ball. They found their man for the future, and they're excited to build off of the success that he had in 23. And again, keeping the core group of guys around him is massive to me.
Yeah, and that's so big. I mean, Jeff Banks, right-hand man on all things recruiting front. Kyle Flood, right-hand man on all things football field front on the offensive side, or obviously Sark's, that continuity between him, play caller, offensive line coach, I think is huge, obviously. And then you have things, some things we're not going to get contract details on, but Brandon Harris elevated to GM, John Michael Jones increased role, ascending role there at Texas. So we've got a lot of things going on. Now we've got a lot of clarity on everything. I still think there'll be a couple more moves in that football department, obviously on the recruiting side. But we got some clarity on things headed into spring practice. So again, I'm Gerry Hamilton for CJ Vogel. Thank you very much to all the Texas fans for tuning in. And hey, and if there's any A&M, OU, Georgia fans, come on in, man. Coffee and football every week. Yeah, Sunday night live streams every night of the week. So a month away from spring practice, headed to the SEC. It's going to be a lot of fun. This will probably be the last contract talk before it's time to talk Quinn and Arch for a month. I mean, so
yeah, no kidding.
That's what's next for Texas fans. Isaiah Bond, Nye Black, all the freshmen looking good on the 40 acres. So for CJ Vogel, I'm Gerry Hamilton. Thank you for tuning in.